Hi, welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to talk about the sexualization of teenage girls because I watched a couple of videos on it already. I watched Shan Spears and Madison Brown's and I really liked them, but I thought there was like something missing. The thing that I think is missing from the discourse on the sexualization of teenage girls is the role of the whole like female empowerment message, right? How a lot of teenage girls are looking at feminist ideas of empowerment, reclaiming sexuality, and using this as a justification or as a reason to pursue their own like sexualization or to encourage their sexualization. And I want to have a look at this and see how feminist discourse is actually having the opposite effect of the intended empowerment on these teenage girls and putting them in even more vulnerable situations. But the first thing I want to do is actually just talk about, I guess, the more general conventional reasons as to why young girls are sexualized. And the first one is like capitalism, sex sells, etc. None of this is new. Like, remember the whole like 90s 2000 pop star phenomenon, like Britney Spears, Destiny's Child, all of those guys, how they were encouraged to sexualize themselves in order to sell records, in order to sell. And so yeah, the problem isn't new. I just feel like it's sort of amplified because of social media. It isn't just a few young girls who feel this pressure, like a few specific young girls who feel this pressure. It's a lot of young girls because of the access we all have to some degree of fame. I mean, look at TikTok, look at social media. Anyone can in theory be famous, and being sexy is how we achieve that goal quickly. Like, think of TikTok posting a video of you twerking versus doing the Macarena. Like, one is always going to do better than the other one. It's a given. Society sexualizes teenage girls and rewards them for sexualizing themselves, so teenage girls sexualize themselves. And it's not even just social media. We can see it in conventional media and TV. It's like Riverdale, etc. Like teenagers being played by adults, doing adult things that regular teenagers don't do, making teenagers think that they have to behave this way in order to be cool. Teenagers are already pretty vulnerable to being misled. And when they see 17-year-olds on TV and online dressing sexily and having sex and being sexualized, they feel as though it's what they need to do in order to fit in. It's what they need to be in order to fit in. And once their peers start doing it and publicly gaining clout from it and being rewarded for acting in this way, look at TikTok for example, it adds to the pressure even more. It makes young girls even more inclined to believe that this is how they should act, and they don't think about the consequences of it or whether they actually want to. It's more of like a feeling like they need to. And I think a lot of this whole young girls behaving in a sexy way has a lot to do with fitting in. Like, only wearing Superdry and Jack Wills and things was about fitting in when I was 13. Looking like Kim Kardashian at 14 is about fitting in these days. Teenagers who look like teenagers are generally made fun of by other teenagers, so it seems that girls are doing everything that they can to not look like teenagers in order to fit in. And whether that's fitting into the dominant ideal of what a woman should look like, or succumbing to peer pressure, or even just the idea that to be feminist, to be a woman, to be womanly, or like, yeah, to be a feminist, you need to sexualize yourself, you need to reclaim your sexuality, which is the next thing I want to talk about, how skewed this idea is. So in the past couple decades, there's been a big push within feminist circles, within liberal feminist circles, to reclaim your sexuality. The whole idea behind this is meant to subvert the male gaze and use it to your advantage, to dress sexily for yourself because it makes you feel good, and to say a big to the patriarchy. And there are a lot of issues with this idea, but there's one in particular that I'd like to get into, and that is the fact that it promotes the message that in order to be liberated, to be empowered, women must sexualize themselves. Sure, you could argue that it's about choice and it's about women choosing whether or not they want to sexualize themselves. But I want to argue that the way the whole thing is framed, it suggests that being sexy is the only way to be truly liberated. I mean, it's a bit ironic because we're all playing into this male gaze fantasy by sexualizing ourselves and calling it empowerment. Still sexualizing ourselves, we're still catering to the male gaze. So what would it care? To drive my point home, pretty much what I'm saying is that because the whole idea of reclaiming your sexuality, like as a form of empowerment is skewed, the most vulnerable group of women in this scenario, which I'm arguing are teenage girls, are susceptible to its counterproductive messaging. Because adult women are using this messaging, this narrative, present themselves in a particular way, teenage girls are internalizing this dominant presentation, which is making them not even consider the choice aspect, the fact that they could still be empowered and not sexualize themselves, because not sexualizing yourself isn't rewarded by society, whether it's your choice or whether it's been pushed upon you. Women who've chosen to sexualize themselves are doing well, and that is what teenage girls see. They do not see the feminist women who feel empowered by choosing not to sexualize themselves. And the other women are doing well because this is what society rewards, as I've said. And the fact that this is all that we are seeing, that these girls are seeing, makes them think that in order to be truly liberated, in order to be feminist, you have to sexualize yourself, which just isn't the case. It's leading young girls into making choices in the name of empowerment, when in fact all that they're actually doing is mimicking what society rewards and thinking very little about the consequences of that or of what they might actually want. And I think we can see this through the whole OnlyFans / sugar daddy, sugar baby discourse. It's being sold by certain women, by adult women, as a way to reclaim your sexuality and also to achieve financial freedom. It's being romanticized. No shade to them at all, but I don't think it's right to sort of romanticize it in a way that encourages young girls to aspire to this kind of thing, especially when they have little knowledge of what the consequences might be for them and their future. There's nothing wrong with adult women choosing to do this, and power to them. But very few of these women that I see online on TikTok talking about the benefits, the rewards, everything, promoting this lifestyle, they never really discuss the consequences, which I know shouldn't be there, but fundamentally we still live in a misogynistic society and sex work will always be demonized. And it misleads younger people for this reason. The people promoting this message, they fail to portray the implications of their decisions, that teenage girls are still playing into whichever male fantasy they seek to be subverting by choosing to empower themselves in this way. And the fact of the matter is it sometimes is even more insidious because of the predatory attitude some men have towards teenage girls. For example, victim blaming is already such a big issue when it comes to this sort of thing. And it puts these girls in an even more vulnerable position because they are looking at it as liberation without fully understanding the consequences and the fact that it is still being looked at as promiscuity by the rest of society. And therefore it will be punished and scrutinized as such, regardless of how they're looking at it themselves. So in a sense, the sexual liberation movement in terms of teenage girls is also becoming a way to groom these girls through this messaging of empowerment. It aligns young girls into situating themselves within predatory ideals and predatory attitudes, and predators are preying on them because of this. You have sexy 14-year-olds who look 21 and think that they are fully consenting adults because of it, and gross men who prey upon this mindset. It isn't just physical, because teenage girls are pushed into this whole mindset through this idea of empowerment that they are mature and liberated. And again, this might lead them to believe that having 40-year-old men ogling at them is perfectly normal when it absolutely isn't. Honestly, I think we need more education. We need more nuanced discussion on what empowerment actually is, so that sexual approval isn't such a big part of it, isn't the main message being promoted. And so that young girls don't feel like sexualizing themselves is a feminism 101 prerequisite. There's a thin line between empowerment and sexualization, and especially when girls are too young to understand that their sexualization can be dangerous. It isn't just about them and how they feel about themselves. It has implications because of their age and because of how it can be subverted and used to exploit them. We need to teach girls that their worth and success lies beyond their sexuality. You can choose not to sexualize yourself and still be empowered and still call yourself a feminist. You can choose to do whatever you want and still call yourself a feminist. More primarily, actually, we need to cultivate the kind of society that doesn't encourage or reward literal children for sexualizing themselves. None of this lies with the teenage girls themselves. I'm not saying that at all. It is not their fault. It's very much a culture in which, may I say, it's become almost standardized for teenage girls to be sexualized. And the consequences on the safety and well-being of these girls isn't ever really considered. It's put on a back burner. I think we need to take a step back and openly criticize, firstly, the media and its complicity in this whole phenomenon. And secondly, criticize the branches of feminism which lack the kind of nuance to discuss these issues and to prevent the kind of predatory sexualization that I've been talking about. There is nothing wrong with empowerment, but we just need to talk about how this message is being internalized by young people and the implications of that, and how it's like dominantly portrayed and perceived. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. It's been like a very interesting topic for me to think about and write about, and a lot of this is from my own head. I've just been doing a lot of thinking, so I'd love to know what you think. Yeah, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, specifically comment again, and I will see you next time. Bye.